peace, and tranquility. Home is Housing TV Africa. Housing TV, your first in housing news.
Happy Independence, Nigeria. Welcome to the Good Morning Africa show on Housing TV Africa. It's a new era for Nigerians as we celebrate the 64th independence anniversary of our dear country. On the show today, we have a lot in store for you with some news stories on Nigeria at 6 to 4. Also, we'll be looking at Mr. President's 64th Independence Anniversary Day speech. And later on the show, we'll be having our guests join us in reflecting on the nation's growth and unity as Nigeria celebrates 64 years of independence. I am Maimuna Bagudu. The Good Morning Africa show continues after this break. Stay with us.
It is Nigeria independence.
Happy Independence Day, Nigeria. Today, as we celebrate our independence,
how do we make housing affordable and accessible to that man? And what about the woman who has no clean water for cooking? And that is why our advocacy is affordable housing for all.
To our political leaders, governors, National Assembly members, those holding important positions in government, I'd like to say happy independence. Permit me to use this opportunity to tell you that issue of housing will be taken seriously. You can address this issue of housing, especially for those people that really need the houses. Our economy will improve.
Happy Independence Day, Nigeria, from all of us at African International Housing Show, AIHS. God bless Nigeria.
Welcome back. Now to news stories. President Bola Tinubu on Tuesday delivered a message of hope and progress in the ongoing battle against terrorism and banditry across Nigeria. In his October 1st, 2024 Independence Day address to the nation, Tinubu assured citizens that the government is making significant stability across the country. President Tinubu in a statement mentioned that his administration is winning the war on terror and banditry, adding that his administration target is to eliminate all threats of Boko Haram, banditry, kidnapping for ransom, and all forms of violent extremism. Mr. President also highlighted the government's response to recent natural disasters, reaffirming the administration's dedication to addressing challenges and supporting affected communities.
My administration took over leadership of our country 16 months ago at a critical juncture. The economy faced many headwinds and our physical security highly impaired. We found ourselves at a distant crossroad where we must choose between two paths: reform for progress and prosperity, or carry on the business as usual and collapse. We decided to reform our political economy and defense architecture. On the security front, I am happy to announce to you, my compatriots, that our administration is winning the war on terror and banditry. Our target is to eliminate all threats of Boko Haram, banditry, kidnapping for ransom, and the scourge of all forms of violent extremism. Within 1 year, Our government has eliminated many Boko Haram and bandit commanders faster than ever. As of the last count, over 300 Boko Haram and bandit commanders have been eliminated by our gallant troops in the northeast, northwest, and some other part of the country. We have restored peace to hundreds of communities in the north, and thousands of our people have been able to return home. It is an unfinished business, I agree, which our security agencies are committed to ending as quickly as possible. As soon as we can restore peace to many communities in the troubled part of the north, our farmers can return to their farms. We expect to see a leap in food production and a downward spiral in food costs. I promise you, we shall not falter on this. Our government has been responding to the recent natural disasters, particularly the flooding in the part of the country. After Vice President Kashim Shettima visited Maiduguri, I also visited to assure our people that this federal government will always stand with our people in their times of trouble. At the last meeting of the Federal Executive Council, we approved a disaster relief fund to mobilize private and public sector funds to help us respond faster to emergencies. Our government has also ordered the integrity test of our dams in the country to avert future disasters.
Still on Nigeria at 64, Nigerian security forces on Tuesday sealed off Eagle Square, a revered national venue, and dispersed a protest by the hashtag Fearless in October demonstrators, escalating tensions between protesters and the government in the nation's capital, Abuja. Now, the crackdown involving police and military personnel blocked access to the square, a strategic location near the National Assembly and Presidential Villa that symbolizes Nigeria's seat of power. The Tuesday's protest was aimed to highlight Nigeria's economic crisis, with demonstrators demanding an end to poverty, hardship, and poor governance. The government's decision to seal off Eagle Square, despite its not being used for Independence Day celebrations, raised concerns among protesters about their freedom of assembly and expression.
They have started shooting us tear gas. They are trying to disperse us. Don't move, comrades, don't move. Don't move, comrades, don't move. What's happening? Rob, my bag. Bag, come, open this my bag. Rob, my bag. No, Rob for eye. Look again. kó síta ní tòmátò ṣe ń tọ̀ nìyẹn pẹ̀lú àwọn ọlọ́pàá yẹn náà.
Now, still on the Good Morning Show, our discussion segment is next with Town Planner Barnabas Atiaye, the Managing Director, MVCOM team, and the National Chairman, Ethics and Disciplinary Committee at the Nigerian Institute of Town Planners. Do stay with us. Welcome back from that quick break. If you're just joining us, this is the Good Morning Africa show on Housing TV Africa. Happy Independence, Nigeria once again. To continue the show, our discussion segment centers on Nigeria at 64, reflecting on national growth and unity in a changing Africa. We have a guest to have this discussion with us in person of Town Planner Barnabas Atiaye. He is the Managing Director of MVCOM team and also the National Chairman, Ethics and Disciplinary Committee at the Nigerian Institute of Town Planners. You're highly welcome, Town Planner Barnabas. Thank you so much for coming and happy independence.
Thank you very much, viewers, and happy independence to all of us.
Thank you. So let's look at Nigeria at 64. What's your overview?
Well, by the way, still happy independence
Thank you.
to Nigerians at 64. Whether we are really independent, that is what I do not know. Whether also we are happy, I really find it difficult to explain. But generally, the fact that we have survived 64 years and we are still there as a country, I think I would like to commend Nigerians for their resilience and for their doggedness and ability to navigate through difficult terrains. That's the first possibly impression I have. But generally, I looked at Nigeria and I weep. I weep because some of us were here before Nigeria actually was born. And in the early stage of our lives, we saw what Nigeria was to become, and we had very, very high expectations. And that time, we were not really suffering, as it were. Things were available, and there was a kind of a general, hope for better future for the Nigerians. But it's like every moment we move forward, we step downwards, and that has really pained my heart. So Nigeria may be growing in some aspects that we never expected anyway. For instance, the population growth is incontestable. That is true. But in terms of our economy, in terms of accepting one another, in terms of economic growth, in terms of political development, in terms of our technological advancement, we have a lot of grounds to cover. And I think we have a job to do as people in this country. Have you realized that the best brains, or most of the best brains, are really going out?
Yes, yes.
And they are making great deal of innovative development in other lands, different from what they could have done even in this country.
Yeah.
The environment, is not really giving us the right focus to do what we can excel in. We have great intellectuals, but they have not been given the opportunity. And I want this country really to come back and start thinking possibly differently. Our political leaders, can we eschew some of our own personal sentiments that is based on either religion, that is based on possibly region, that is based on other factors, you know, that really has like strangulated us as a nation. Now, I am very much aware that there are people in this country that have made efforts. They are not really very high there technologically or educationally, but they have been able to develop some things that if government had given them just a push, it would have gone far and wide. Nigeria has great, you know, technological minds that if they are given the environment to do, would have been like Japan. Now, these three regions we have in our country, how I wish that we can have an innovation centers in each of these three regions. All these people we now see as people of great intellectuals and people that can innovate. We have seen people developing aeroplanes, even in this land, in a very simple one. People building cars, and they have never been mentioned, they have never been called to see how we can develop that. How can we move forward? And if the youth in this nation are always relegated, you know what? Since 1960s and 70s, and coming to the 80s, our leaders are the same people recycling themselves.
Sure.
They will say that the future is for the youth. Now the youth have come, and the elders are still holding on to power. How can we progress? No country has ever developed to the extent that we desire or they desire when only the elders, the old people, are in charge. The youth they have some kind of, you know, motivation to excel, always, always. And I believe that if Nigeria can take advantage of the 70% population of youth, the elders just need to sit down and watch the wonders of God in the youth.
And then maybe possibly guide them aright when they are, you know, going astray, giving them, because they have more wealth of experience. We cannot deny that. But then they should be, you know, like you stated, you know, behind, folding their arms to watch this youth drive the nation while giving them guidance.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They become more like mentors.
Yes.
No, don't go that way. Then they can now say, now, this is the new way. Allow us to tell you what it means to go this way. If you go this way, we are going back to where you started. But this one will give us another pedestal of exposure.
Mm-hmm.
That is what we need in this country. Allow the youth really to see how the future can be for their own, you know, history and people coming behind them. Well, the president said that there's going to be youth confab.
Of course.
You
for
see,
30 days?
For 30 days, you know, I have problem with that. Because the choice of those youths is another ball game. Who will determine who will come? How many of the youth will be brought? Is it one from each state, one from each local government, one from each senatorial district, or how are they, or one from each local government area? And, you know, we have to really look at it and see what are they going to, what is the agenda, really? If we have a national confab that came with a very wonderful document, and that document was taken and placed aside, we have not moved forward. If such recommendations have been brought up and implemented with minor adjustments, probably would have gone beyond where we are today. But you see, we as a nation, we are fighting with 3 or 4 different challenges. The challenge of region. It has, you know, before independence, before independence, I was meant to understand that all our political leaders, whether in the east, west, or north, they have one mind. They fought as one people to get ourselves out of such colonial, enclave. We got it. And when we now came from 1960, now things started developing. Of course, we have the regional governments that were performing very well. Everyone was trying to, excel. There was a kind of a competition, healthy one for that matter. And I know that in the north, the prime minister was not bothered about whether you are a Christian or you are a Muslim. In as much as you deliver, he is inviting you to be part. We have come to a point now where are you from? Are you from the north, east, or west? If you come to the north, which state are you? If you come to the even the states, there are so many divisions. So that in itself is a great drawback in our progress and development. Even that, come up again to the issue of religion. Religion was never a factor in terms of our being together, but today it has become, depending upon where you are located, depending upon who you are dealing with.
Sure.
So it is a way of really like dividing us and segregating us. The issue of therefore coming together united for a country that is the giant of Africa has now failed completely. And that's why we are no more the giant of Africa. Economically, we were self-sustaining. Even in the 70s, when I was in the school, one white man told me that his fear about Nigeria is that we are so dependent on one commodity, and that is oil. By the time it fails, Nigeria will be in confusion. And this is what I've seen now happening before our very eyes.
Thank you so much, Town Planner Brian Nabas, for that overview on Nigeria at 6 to 4. So the president addressed Nigerians, congratulating all Nigerians on being alive to see another new, I call it a new era for us because it's a new age. 6 to 4, it's a huge number. And then one thing that really caught my eyes while he was addressing the nation is he stated that the war against terrorism and banditry has been won. And he made a statement that his administration has been able to put in efforts to fight terror and banditry. He also added that that was his administration's target, to eliminate the threats of Boko Haram, kidnappers seeking for ransoms, and all forms of violent extremism. Can you really say that has been dealt with?
The issue of dealing with that is not there yet. But that the fact that they have commitment towards it is what we can possibly appreciate. During the last administration, they have told us that they have done significantly, they have degraded, or there was a term they used, that they have degraded the Boko Haram. And virtually every administration tends to feel that they have actually overcome the challenge. But contemporary situation is suggesting that government is doing a lot, but that a lot has not yet given us the expected results. How many people are still in captivity that has not been brought up, giving them freedom? Everyone now traveling is always afraid to travel. The Northeast was this main center of fear then. But even in Northeast, Borno State, there are some places you cannot go. Now coming back to the Northwest, oh my goodness, it is becoming another challenge. Apart from banditry, there is also the issue of kidnappers for money. And there is what they call farmers, herders
clash.
And I always say that there has never been any farmers herders clash. It is the attack of the farmers, of the herders on the farmers. I've never seen where they are fighting. It is herders premeditated clash on the farmers. And I want this one to be put clearly, because as far as my experience is concerned, I'm also from the village. We farm. We have never gone to attack the Fulanis or the herders. It's the herders that will come to our farm, and when you resist, they now kill you. So who is clashing who? So I want us to make it clear that it is not farmers herders clash. It is the premeditated attack of the Fulanis herders on the farmers. This should be clearly stated, and that's why we need to really work with this understanding on how to bring a solution to that. This will linger for so many years. And if the issue of banditry is being tackled, the issue of ransom for kidnappers is being handled and tackled, the issue of Boko Haram is being tackled, and we have not tackled the issue of herders, farmers attack, then we will start all over again.
So Town Planner Barnabas, reflecting on all of these issues, how do you think, because you clearly stated that people should understand, the clashes between farmers and herders, so in trying to solve all of these issues, how do you think that this particular clash between herders farmer or farmers herders can be sorted out?
For me, professionally, we can also attack it professionally, apart from what we have seen happening in other nations of the world. Technology and development and increase in population has changed the landscape of the country. Where it used to be a cattle route has ceased to be because population expansion has eaten it up. So it is no more going to be ideal for any herder to go through that route, trespassing the entire country. It's going to be very difficult. Doing that will amount to so many things. And that's why when we have what we call regional development plan of either states or regions or even the nation, I mean regional physical development plan, we'll be able to now identify areas where these cattle areas are, areas where it's good to really graze, areas where farmers can have their field day, areas where, some kind of, interactive, processes of their businesses could be. If that is done, the idea of ranches is being emphasized of recent. I want that one to be taken up clearly. And regional development plan of any region or even the country can come up with identifying such areas as ranches. Now, the challenge has been, whose land will be taken for ranches? Can the herder be able to buy his own land and say, yes, this is for ranch? Or government is going to provide such for them? What happens to the farmer who provides him with his own farm to cultivate, whether rice, beans, corn, or whatever? No, so it is a bit complex as to whose land will be gotten. We know that the Land Use Act has vested all lands to the state government. And so it's basically an issue of the state government rather than a federal government matter. If state governments can sit down together, have a kind of meeting, stakeholders meeting with both the herdsmen and then the farmers, they always have cooperatives anyway. They can now sit down and say, okay, we want to bring an end to this clash. How can we do that? Push it back to them. They can come up with a solution. But when the solution is administrative, like imposing it on people, that's why the challenge is. That's one. Two, we have realized that quite a number of people are coming into the country. They don't have any stake here, except the fact that they are just coming to take advantage of our laxity in terms of land management. So if that is stopped, we now deal with people we know from the beginning that they have been with us. We have stayed with the Fulanis in our localities for years without any problem. Why is it now?
No.
Who are those that are influencing them? So we need to actually go back to history and then trace what is happening. Who are those that have come and are strange? If they are not part of us, then they need to be told clearly that anything you are doing, you either buy it to sustain yourself and or just go and manage with people that have come earlier than you, that have been part of us. Share what they have, but don't take it away from indigents.
Okay, so let's move into the housing sector, which is, one sector that it's very important, because shelter is important to all. And while Mr. President was giving his manifesto the day he was inaugurated into office as president, he placed so much emphasis on provision for affordable housing, and that is why the creation of the Renewed Hope Estate and Cities was even established in the first place. So we know that the housing deficit in this country is still in the numbers are still there, from 17 to 20 million. So what would you say has changed between then and now?
You see, every government tends to come up with a housing project or housing policy, and they normally will pursue it. Shagari did his own, and there were political challenges that led to the establishment of some of these housing estates far away, behind, where people cannot even stay. And that actually became like a failed project to some extent, but eventually, because of the expansion, people have gone there to start renovating, though others have really pulled it out. Now, this government again has come. You see, my challenge is, anytime government goes into building houses, it's no more sustainable.
Okay.
That's one. I've realized in some states where government has actually done that, it became like a political patronage. They give it to their own, not the people that really need it.
Okay.
Now, anytime you build a house and you want to sell, the current economic challenge has really shown that nobody in the middle sector down can afford to pay any house. But I read of recent that government is thinking of rent to own.
Yes.
That may be another safety guard. I personally will go for that. Rent to own. And it will be done in different classes, from the one bedroom to a studio, expandable ones, to the big ones that people have who have the money can go into.
So okay, so what happens to the people that are unemployed? How do they rent to own?
If you are unemployed, you have become a victim of circumstance. Because I cannot see of immediate, action, a social housing in this country.
Okay.
I cannot see that yet. If we are possibly advanced a bit, social housing may come. Now, we have so many estate developers. And I want to state again that another way could be any land that an estate developer is into, government by policy can come up with a, with a policy that 10 or 20% of that land must be made accessible to the low income. Must be made accessible to the low income. That means the low income can afford. And then the other ones, he can put his prices. Now there could be two ways to it also. One is either government to pay for the difference in terms of the construction, or the developer to take the discount here and add it to the big ones, so that others can pay for these people.
Okay.
If that happens, possibly there could be a kind of a relief a bit, but that is not going to even solve it. Social housing is such that the rate of unemployed people in this country is so massive. For you to go into such investment in housing for people that are not even employed, you know that it's not something we can start talking now. No, that is a no-go area. Rather, let us start to improve the environment that can make those that are not employed to see what is it they can do to get themselves self-employed, rather than getting themselves, you know, all their mindset for government work. Government work can never solve our own challenge. But the private sector is there, and individuals have thought around to identify some gaps in the needs of people, and they normally go in there to start something. And they are always getting it better than even those working in government. Some of them working in government are making it because they are corrupt. Yes. A lot of them are corrupt. Most of those that you see them, you know, very great and making it in life. Follow carefully. It might not be their legitimate money.
So how do we chant the cause for a better nation when almost everybody in the country is corrupt, and then we want our country to be a better place for our children? Because we keep saying, oh, Nigeria is for the youth. Just like you rightly said, the youth are here. What's next for them?
It is a very, very sorry case. Sorry case because when corrupt people are being celebrated, when corrupt people are the ones that always bulldoze their way to power, they cannot punish people that are corrupt. That is natural. And for you that is healthy in terms of activities, and nothing can be linked to you within the current context we are in, it's like you may never get to that power, because there are so many forces that will suppress you. But let me tell you something. A time is coming when the righteous will really come up, and people will be punished when they are corrupt. People will be punished when they are corrupt. And it is only at that point that things will start turning for our better. But as long as there is a kind of condemnation or whatever now of people that are corrupt, you are not punishing anyone, you are just dismissing them from that post, and then it goes into oblivion. Who wouldn't like to be corrupt if he will not be punished and then he will be forgotten? And sometimes again they will go into possibly plea bargain or something, and then they will now settle virtually everyone, and then they now go with what they have. How can we get freedom in such situations? Except if God at his own time provide a very just and righteous leader. We have so many righteous people in this country. People that are so good, incorruptible, but they will never be brought in. I know of stories where some people stood their ground not to now play along. They were either removed or they were neglected where they are for others to continue. So how can we progress? Corruption has come to stay, but the root may be decaying. Very soon, it will be over, and this nation will realize its own potentials.
Indeed. So still reflecting on national growth and unity in a changing Africa, and Town Planner Barnabas, we're still going to go back to the president's speech. Let's look at the educational sector, where he spoke about the implementation of the Nigerian Education Loan Fund, which is meant for students. The aim is to provide cheap loans to our students to pursue their tertiary educational dreams. Now, as we reflect on, on our national growth and see how we can be able to do things differently, do you think that the student loan is a good initiative to support, low-income earners, their children, for them to have access to education? Or you think there should be another better channel and another better approach in which Nigerian children can be able to have access to education?
Now, the educational system in itself is rotten. The quality of education we have is very, very, very low. In the 60s and 70s, a primary school student or pupil can write a letter that can be compared with a graduate today. So the level has actually gone down, but that's just one. Most of the people we have as our leaders today, they benefited from scholarship, not loan. They benefited from scholarships. All of them that are above 60 today benefited from scholarship, not loan, during the academic, lifetime. But now we have come, they are trying to give us a loan. A loan where when you finish your school, you don't have any job. How do you pay that? Is it a way of telling us that, look, we are changing the name from scholarship to loan so that there will be no, kind of, a rush to get it? If we have, let's say, 1,000 people that will benefit from the student's loan, after they are finished, it's not likely that 20% of them will be gainfully employed. Are we segregating the kind of loan that will be given to them based on what type of course you are reading? There are some of these courses that after you're finished, you can be self-sustaining. Is that the kind of loan we are targeting? Or that even if you read a law that is art-based, where there is no skill, as it were, and then after finishing, you have to either think outside the box or be part of government employment before you start paying the loan. I'm still finding it difficult to really comprehend some of these things. Good initiative, yes. But for who? What category of students? Is it only at the university level? Or we are talking even at the secondary level? There are some places where the students cannot even pay for their secondary school. Are they also privy to that? Polytechnics, technical colleges, and the university. I want it to be holistic in reality. I want it to be holistic. Holistic in the sense that what is good for A, let it also be good for B, and that everyone is carried along. Then with that, we are building a nation. But even in this one, you may discover that there are some that will benefit, there are some that will not benefit. That's one. Those that have benefited, there are some that can never repay, there are some that can repay. So I think while government has good intentions, and I see the students so excited about it, let us dig deeper and see how can we help the generality of the students, right down from primary school to the university.
Let's still come back to housing. I'm so particular about housing because in as much as we're in the 21st century, you would still notice that a lot of Nigerians are trooping out of the slums. If you go under bridges, you still see people sleeping under the bridges. You see people, living in batches, living in, unhealthy environment. Why? Because there's no access to affordable housing. So I'm going to throw this question to you. How can investment be made to attract improved incentives to complement affordable housing?
Now, there is always the root cause. The problem of insecurity in the rural areas, the problem of poverty has gone down there because they cannot farm. The moment you are in a center, an urban area, you have people there who say, we have our sister Maimuna, she's in Abuja, let's go. They will only come and discover that you have only one room. And about 3 or 4 of them have come. They will see that he cannot really stay with you. But they wouldn't like to leave the town either. So they will go and find another place to patch. That has brought about the development of slums. And you see, the population growth, urbanization, is unstoppable. Because when urban centers were about 30% in the 80s, 80s, and the rural areas about 70%, it is turning to be the other side. We have now the urban area over 50%, getting to 60% now of the population. And the other ones are in the rural areas. Now, there is therefore the necessity in the first place to improve our regional places, which means the villages themselves. If we plan for the villages, it will stem down the influx of people living in our rural areas to the centers. And by the time you now start bringing industrial activities, agro-allied industries in the villages, improving the rural roads. We used to have DFRI before, Director of Food and Rural Infrastructure. If we create roads linking such to the urban areas, and you can drive 10, 15 minutes here in the urban area, they would rather stay there and deal with their life there without coming to the town. But the villages, nothing to do, no light, no road, no food. They would rather come to the center. Now in Abuja, you see a healthy man standing by the road begging. Because one, he doesn't have anything to do, but he has had to leave his village because of insecurity, because of lack, because he cannot farm. And this is happening in all the urban centers. If I would like to put it this way, all the places who have declared urban areas, state capital and the local government headquarters. So that is one. The second one about the slums in our urban places. Getting them there is another challenging, situation, because it has led to the breed of criminals. It has led to the issue of insecurity. It has led to the problem of health. It has led to the problem of, rape, even in such areas, because so many people in the same place without road, without anything. And if there is any disaster, everyone becomes a victim for that matter. And so some people, afraid of living in such situations, they have started coming to sleep under the bridge, even here in Abuja. And you see, except there is what we may call a transition camp. Now, transition camp is not easy to come by. That is normally being created at the outskirts of the town for first comers to be there before they get themselves settled and then get themselves fixed in a town. Possibly this we are not yet right for it, but if our cities are not well planned, we don't have names to streets, we don't have numbers to houses, then we know that we are just living in a clumsy situation that we cannot help ourselves. Even when you call under distress for the police or any other agency to really come to your rescue becomes almost impossible. So housing people that are coming into the urban areas is going to be another great challenge, both for government and for urban managers. Because while we cannot stop them, we have to find a way of reducing the number of influx, and that can only come through planning also of the regional areas.
Okay, so in line with what you just made mention, how can housing be made more affordable and accessible beyond government intervention? Because, we always talk about collaboration, partnership. To be honest, the government cannot do it all alone. We also have our own civic responsibilities as citizens of the country as well.
You see, what FESADAP is doing is one great approach, sensitization, bringing the industries together and see whether we can really have materials that are indigenous to us. And if we get materials that are indigenous to us, local, building materials for that matter, not the other one we tend to import or whatever. Because the moment you use exotic material, it goes beyond the approach, right, of the local person. But if we are dealing with local building materials, I'm telling you, we can get solid houses. In the village, do you ever hear of a building collapse in the village?
Not at all.
And yet they are using their own local materials.
Yes.
We have come with standards that is foreign. If we adopt standards that is local, people living in village, they know how to do their windows because of their climate change and environmental factors. Coming to the town, say, you have to build this, you have to get that, you have to build it with. So that has added to the complexity of the cost. And I want a situation where the professionals in the field can come up to develop local content and build it in a good way with the same material that people in the village are building. And let us see how that goes. Now, the challenge we have in some of the urban areas is that they want to go high. So first floor, second floor, third floor. When it has to do with the generality of the people, that may not be. But it can be if government is coming in. For instance, we cannot go to 4, 5, or 10-story buildings in this country now because of two factors. There is no light for the lifter, there is no water to go up. So you cannot build 10-story buildings and say it is for residential purpose. Because the thing that will make it comfortable or possible for you to stay at the 10th floor does not exist. So it has to be either the first or second floor. You stop there because that one you can take your water, right, in the bucket, and then you climb and then give. So a time is coming, I believe, in this country where even in our towns, we can have 10 or more story buildings, purposely for residential, and that will be cheaper. And when the issue of rent to own comes, it's going to be seamless. But it will only be when the light is available and water can be supplied to such floors.
Indeed, it's been a great conversation with Town Planner Barnabas at TIA, Managing Director, Envicom team, and also the National Chairman, Ethics and Disciplinary Committee at the Nigerian Institute of Town Planners. Thank you so much for sharing your wealth of experience and for also, being on the show today to reflect on the national growth and unity of our dear country. But before you go, we want you to, kindly speak to Nigerians out there. We cannot deny the fact that the hardship is intense. People are suffering. People are crying out for help. And also would like you to send out your wishes to Mr. President and to all Nigerians out there.
Thank you. Honestly, happy independence anniversary at 64. As the president said, he is mindful of the suffering that people are going through, and that is not deniable. We, as Nigerians, are resilient people. Indeed, we are people that always have hope that it will be better the following day. Whether such hopes are, experienced or not, we still hold on to God. Fortunately, we are so religious nation, so we sometimes say it is God's will. So we possibly depend on that and move on. But I would like to just tell us that better Nigeria will come when we as citizens know what we ought to do that is right. We don't need to follow leaders that we know don't have anything to offer. If we go by what they can offer and we see sincerity of heart, we are willing to take all the pains to achieve what will make us better, and the generation coming will feel relieved of what we are passing through. For now, It is a tough task that must be done. Thank you. Happy Independence Anniversary.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Town
you.
Planner Barnabas.
Thank you.
We hope to have you again in the studio. So, viewer, the Good Morning Africa show still continues. We'll be right back.
Get credible and authentic housing news at your fingertips by downloading the Housing TV mobile app. You can also join the African International Housing Show live from across the globe through the Housing TV mobile app. The mobile app features live streaming and trending housing news. You can locate the AIHS venue via the app, network with AIHS seasoned speakers, and live chat with exhibitors. You can also order house or building materials at AIHS via this app. Download the Housing TV mobile app now from the App Store and Google Play Store. And don't forget to click on the notification button. Available for both iOS and Android users. Housing TV is also on Star Times, channel 149 decoder.
To wrap up the Good Morning Africa show for today, our best wishes and messages of hope from stakeholders in the housing sector to all Nigerians out there as we celebrate 64 years of independence. Let's take a look.
I wish Nigerians happy independence anniversary. In view of the huge opportunities in the housing sector in national development, Nigerians hold a promise to be a great nation, especially when it comes to housing sector. So in line with the vision of His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GSFR, I promise to take bold initiatives which should champion strategic housing reforms and break the systemic barriers to housing and urban development. For me, I believe that housing is not just about brick and mortar. It is also about creating communities, building families, and ensuring that every Nigerian has a place they can call home. For one car, where the timing to rebuild and restore.
Housing news.
Housing development progress. Number one and the best. Housing development progress. Number one. Number one. Housing development progress. Number one and the best. Housing development progress. Number one. Housing development progress. In Nigeria. Housing development program. In Africa. Housing development program. And the globe. Number one. Housing development program.
In many developing countries, including Nigeria, urban housing crisis is escalating unabated despite a number of new policies, programs, and strategies being engaged in by public and private sectors in addressing this problem. Government has recognized that the majority of those in need of housing in many less developed nations in Africa, Asia, and South America are in the low-income categories, and that some require special housing programs to be able to live in decent housing. In Nigeria, however, public housing provision in this country has continued to lag behind the demand for housing, as almost 70% of the nation's housing stock is provided by the informal sectors. Nigerians have had to live with promises of housing for all by the year 2000, 2010, 2015, and even 2020. And the date will continue to change if an enabling environment for affordable housing are not developed and if the right policies and political will are not in place to make it happen. Welcome to another informative episode of Housing Development, a program focused on the provision of adequate, accessible, and affordable housing for Nigerians. As always, I am Flora Ani, your housing diva. Let's see the news making rounds in the housing sector. I will be back in a moment.
The Executive Director of the Housing Development Advocacy Network, HDAN, has congratulated President Bola Ahmed Tinubu on the 64th Independence Anniversary of Nigeria. This was contained in a statement by the Executive Director of the Advocacy Group, Festus Adebayo, and was made available to newsmen in Abuja on Monday. Adebayo called on Mr. President to remember his manifesto, particularly in the area of affordable housing. He highlighted some of the key factors hindering the access of affordable housing in Nigeria, some of which are inflation, cost of building materials, land access barriers, as well as some obsolete laws that need to be amended. The Minister of Housing and Urban Development, Architect Ahmed Musa Dangiwa, has declared that Nigeria's 64th independence anniversary marks the dawn of a new era of prosperity, urging citizens to view the current challenges as essential sacrifices for the nation's sustainable development. In his Independence Day goodwill message, the minister emphasized that this year's celebration will be remembered as a turning point where the country begins to fully harness its resources for the collective benefits of all Nigerians. He highlighted President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's leadership in dismantling long-standing barriers to growth, such as fuel subsidies and the multiple foreign exchange windows which had stifled the nation's progress. He further remarked that under the Renewed Hope agenda, the housing and urban development has witnessed unprecedented reforms, particularly in housing and urban development.
Housing news, do well to visit www.africanhousingnews.com. Nigeria and Nigerians recently celebrated our 61st independence anniversary. As we celebrate this day, what is the hope for the common man to own a home? What has been the progress of home ownership of Nigerians, good, fair, or bad? Has the provision of low-cost housing improved over the years? Well, these Nigerians have this to say.
It has never gotten any improvement because the previous government that have come by have made several notions to it concerning the housing, but every now and then it keeps getting worse. All we keep saying is building estates like that for themselves or for their own personal use, but not for the interest of the public. It is important for every Nigerian to own a home, but the government doesn't even make it even easier for anybody to even own a home. Even renting service is even difficult, not to talk about even owning a house. And the present situation about even the hardship the country is facing cannot even make somebody to even have even a roof or even a shade, not talk about even a roof over his head.
So it's very, very important for us to get, a place to stay. But the thing is that they are doing their best, but those places, the estates that government are providing, they are not readily available to commoners.
Talk of house today. You will see a family, a father, a mother. Oh, when you see you shed tears for Nigerians. A civil servant, I'm talking about, not the private. A civil servant serving Nigeria government. Husband and wife and 4 children living in one room because not occupied a room or parlor. Because a cheeky change, they are getting office. Before you buy rice, before you buy this, where's the money? You cannot even be able to achieve land. Please, I am sorry.
No. It's nothing to write home about. Shagari started a low-cost estate, but the funny thing is that the politicians still do it in such a way that the masses cannot afford it. Home is one of the basic things of life. And if the government had gotten it right, at least somebody from the age of 30 above supposed to have own a home.
Nigeria is still lagging behind in terms of infrastructural development. You can see the cost of building in Nigeria is still on the high side. So common people cannot afford the availability of building houses. So Nigerian government should do something to bring down the cost of building. You know, people are still living in shanties. And it's not supposed to be. If we calculate from 1960 to this present time, you see that we are lagging behind, honestly. Okay, and the economy, when you think about the economy, a common person cannot afford to build common two-bedroom. For you to erect a structure now, we take you millions of naira. And that money is not something you can just say millions. It's very difficult to get. So actually, we need to rethink and bring down the cost of governance so that one can have affordable house.
Affordable, accessible, and livable accommodation is very paramount for the well-being of the low-income Nigerians. As we celebrate 61st Independence Anniversary, let's look for practical solutions to home ownership issues of low-income earners. I'll be back shortly.
Lagos Physical Planning Summit is here at the Center of Excellence, where opportunities meet painstaking planning and infrastructural development. A city of estimated 24 million people, a burgeoning commercial and industrial hub. In furtherance of Governor Sanwo-Olu's Themes Plus agenda, the Office of Physical Planning is set to match operative development plans with investment opportunities as it invites stakeholders to her inaugural Lagos Physical Planning Summit. Theme: Rethinking Lagos, a new vision for a regional and integrated mega city. Chief host, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, Governor of Lagos State. Keynote speaker, His Excellency, Mr. Babatunde Fashola, SAN, former Governor of Lagos State. Host, Dr. Oluyinka Olumide, Commissioner for Physical Planning and Urban Development. Date, Tuesday 15th to Wednesday 16th October 2024. Venue, Eco Hotels and Suites, Victoria Island, Lagos. Time, 8:30 a.m. daily for sustainable Lagos. Announcer, Lagos State Government.
Welcome back. 64 years of housing development in Nigeria. Let's take a drive down memory lane. Since Nigeria's independence in 1960, the nation's housing sector, like most critical sectors of the country's economy, has experienced some twists and turns. It is a fact that housing has been in short supply. This report coming up seeks to give an overview of Nigeria's housing sector from 1960 till date.
Basic knowledge shows that one of the major needs of human is shelter. In Nigeria, over 80% of our population are living in slums, otherwise known as unplanned settlements, with limited access to pipe-borne water and basic social amenities. While those in the urban centers are living in rented accommodation that takes away almost 40% of their income, with no adequate facilities for water or electricity.
The situation of housing is that we take it the way it comes on that play and believe the government will do more, do better something at least to help the masses.
The challenges faced by Nigerians on housing are countless, from high rent fees to low-quality housing and absence of accessible roads. But none of these challenges can be compared to affordability.
If government can build an affordable house schemes where this less privilege will be able to afford. Imagine in FCT, people can no longer see a room for 500,000 naira. A room is going 1.5. The masses has been denied their rights in respect to housing schemes.
As Nigeria marks her 64th anniversary since her freedom from colonial rule, one major area that has been a center of concern is the provision of affordable housing. How has the housing sector fared in the last 64 years? Arguably, Nigeria started out well after independence with forward-looking national development plans that had ambitious housing development components. This was the period of low-cost housing by the then President Shehu Shagari at the federal level and Lateef Jakonde in Lagos. With a growing population of 200 million and high urbanization growth rate estimated at 4 to 5% per annum, housing stock in Nigeria is said to be between 12 million and 15 million units, while an unconfirmed record shows that about 25 million households with 6 members each don't have homes of their own. According to reports, out of 200 million Nigerians, only 8 million people qualify for the luxury property market, adding that while there is more than enough for the latter, hardly any thought is spared for the remaining 192 million citizens. Today, the accurate data for Nigeria's housing deficit is still a mirage. This unknown deficit data, according to experts, requires building over 700,000 housing units yearly for the next 20 years and spending about 56 trillion naira to close, meaning that to effectively house its citizens, Nigeria needs to spend its annual budgets for over 5 years on housing development alone. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, in his Renewed Hope Action Plan, has outlined ambitious milestones that he hopes to implement to change the narrative and unlock potential of the housing sector to boost economic development, create jobs, foster inclusive growth, and ensure access to affordable and decent housing for all. This includes notably the utilization of 20% of the cash reserve fund in CBN, set aside to promote long-term 20 to 30-year mortgages and affordable consumer credits, reviewing the PENCOM regulations to allow increased investment of pension funds in the mortgage asset class, working with state governments to provide credits and incentives to developers of affordable housing, amongst others. To drive the vision, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu GCFR appointed architect Ahmed Musa Dangiwa as the Minister for Housing and Urban Development. Architect Dangiwa brings to the Tinubu cabinet over 30 years of experience in the real estate, mortgage financing, and housing development that span private and public sectors as well as academia.
Along with the vision of His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GSFR, I promise to take bold initiatives which should champion strategic housing reforms and break systemic barriers to housing and urban development. We will work closely with the National Assembly to review all the relevant laws and streamline land and housing administration and create a conducive environment for investment in the housing sector. For me, I believe that housing is not just about brick and mortar. It is also about creating communities, building families, and ensuring that every Nigerian has a place they can call home. I'm here to work with you towards making that possible.
These reforms, if successfully implemented, will no doubt increase liquidity in the housing market and also create the enabling environment necessary for much-needed enhanced private sector participation. Our hope is that as we celebrate Nigeria at 64th anniversary, housing will be given its rightful place in the order of priorities at the top, or at least close to the top. Happy Independence Day, Nigeria.
Lagos Physical Planning Summit is here at the Center of Excellence where opportunities meet painstaking planning and infrastructural development. A city of estimated 24 million people, a burgeoning commercial and industrial hub. In furtherance of Governor Sanwo-Olu's Themes Plus agenda, the Office of Physical Planning is set to match operative development plans with investment opportunities as it invites stakeholders to her inaugural Lagos Physical Planning Summit. Theme: Rethinking Lagos, a new vision for a regional and integrated mega city. Chief host, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, Governor of Lagos State. Keynote speaker, His Excellency, Mr. Babatunde Fashola, SAN, former Governor of Lagos State. Host, Dr. Oluyinka Olumide, Commissioner for Physical Planning and Urban Development. Date, Tuesday 15th to Wednesday 16th October 2024. Venue, Eco Hotels and Suites, Victoria Island, Lagos. Time, 8:30 a.m. daily for sustainable Lagos. Announcer, Lagos State Government.
We must not relent in our effort in making the housing sector one that will contribute immensely to the nation's GDP as we build more low-cost, affordable houses for Nigerians. What has been the effect of democracy on housing in Nigeria from 1999 till date? Let's watch this report that speaks of Nigeria's democracy and housing development.
Nigeria is perhaps the fastest urbanizing country in African continent. One of the most important challenges facing the country is the provision of affordable housing. This report will take a look at housing development in Nigeria from the democratic dispensation 1999 till date. The Obasanjo government was marked by the establishment of the Federal Ministry of Land, Housing and Urban Development and the proposal of multiple housing reforms, including the restructuring of the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria. These policies also became an offshoot of professional bodies like the Real Estate Developers Association of Nigeria, REDAN, and the Building Materials Producers Association of Nigeria, BUMPAN. During this period, the Federal Ministry of Lands, Housing and Urban Development was established from the then Federal Ministry of Works and Housing. The period between 2004 policy focus was on the private sector to serve as the main catalyst for housing delivery in Nigeria, while the government concentrates on the provision of basic infrastructure and housing development. Issues in the Land Use Act were equally given attention for review, as well as the financial structures such as the FMBN and provision of incentives to developers in form of tax holidays for 5 years. The Nigerian housing policy in 2006 was as a result of earlier policies and programs to adequately resolve the backlogs of housing problems in the country. This policy came up with some transitionary strategies in which government made significant efforts in partial disengagement into housing provision and encouraged privately developed housing. Under the policy adjustments, such as the Almatization period, which was 25 years under the previous policy, was jacked up to 30 years interest on NHF loans to PMIs was scaled down from 5% to 4%, while the lending rate contributors is reduced to 6% from previous 9%. In 2007 to 2010, during Umar Musa Yar'Adua's administration, while there were no grandiose ambitions about housing, one of the points in his famous 7-point agenda was land reforms. While hundreds of billions of dollars have been lost through unused government-owned land assets, changes in the land laws and the emergence of land reforms is a post-optimized Nigeria's growth through the release of land for mass housing, commercialized farming, and other large-scale businesses by the private sector. Final results is supposed to assure improvements and boosts to the production and wealth creation initiatives. Unfortunately, he didn't live long enough to see this through. On 18th April 2009, when the National Technical Working Committee under the Housing Thematic Area of the Vision 2020 was inaugurated, they were asked to make recommendations towards the contribution of housing towards the Vision 2020 goal of the federal government. Part of the major vision was to make the housing sector part of the top 3 major contributors to the nation's economy by adding 10 million affordable homes to the national housing stock by the year 2020. It was suggested that for Nigeria to meet up with its housing needs by the year 2020, the federal government must provide the legal and regulatory environment that would attract public-private partnership (PPP). In 2012, Goodluck Jonathan announces that the federal government was committed to revolutionizing the housing sector by translating the National Housing Policy and National Urban Development Policy into a roadmap for housing development in the country. In line with this, NMRC was established for mortgage refinancing with the support of World Bank. The Buhari-led administration introduced new initiatives to tackle housing delivery, like the Family Homes Funds and National Housing Program, with construction ongoing in about 34 states, the Federal Integrated Staff Housing in 2016, and My Own Home Scheme in 2017. With the new administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, it is, however, important to note that the government needs to focus on other components of large-scale housing developments like land, finance, infrastructure, building materials, and labor in order to completely achieve delivery of affordable housing in Nigeria.
It is Nigeria independence.
Happy Independence Day, Nigeria. Today, as we celebrate our independence,
How do we make housing affordable and accessible to that man?
And what about the woman who has no clean water for cooking?
And that is why our advocacy is affordable housing for all.
To our political leaders, governors, National Assembly members, those holding important positions in government, I'd like to say happy independence. Permit me to use this opportunity to tell you that issue of housing will be taken seriously. You can address this issue of housing, especially for those people that really need the houses. Our economy will improve.
Happy Independence Day, Nigeria. Welcome back. You're watching Housing Development. At this point, I want to say a happy birthday to Town Planner Pa Chief Donatus C. Obialo, who just turned 90 years on Monday. Well, I had the privilege of interviewing him on urban and regional planning just recently. Let's have a look. Now, sir, let's look at, the recent flooding in Borno State. Our climate as it is now is not what we used to have before in the past. The climate has changed greatly. Now, the recent flood in Borno and those in other parts of other states in the country, what will be your message to those governors, especially when it comes to planning their cities?
I said, if you fail to plan, you are planning to fail. These cities and the governments, they have neglected, grossly neglected planning. And when plans are made, they are put under the shelf. If you do a plan and you have no way, you have not planned how to deal with the storm and storm runoff from the buildings, from whatever you construct on the land. When it rains, the flood must be controlled. It lives with us even before climate change. It has existed.
Hello, members of the Nigerian Institute of Town Planners. Today is the 30th day of September 2024, when we remember our illustrious doing of the planning profession. The oldest town planner we have in Nigeria today, a past president of the Institute, the chairman board of trustees of the Institute, and the immediate past chairman, the College of Fellows of the Institute, past president, Pa Chief Donatus C. Obialo, who clocks 90 today. Papa, we wish you the best. You have been a father to us. You have been a guide to us. We are proud of you. We wish you more years, greater years, in good health, in service to the town planning profession in Nigeria.
Well, for now, because of our time, that's the most I can bring of that interview, but I promise to bring the full interview on my next edition of Housing Development. As Nigeria celebrates her 61st independence anniversary, there is a need to act expeditiously to make housing affordable to all. On that note, I say thanks for watching Housing Development. Happy 61st Independence Anniversary, Nigeria. We are one nation bound in freedom, peace, and unity. And together, we can surmount these challenges bedeviling us as a nation. I remain Flora Ani, your housing diva. God bless Nigeria.